say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and these ones definitely are, as some of these photographs have preceded some of the most major moments in history. Let's check it out. First on the list, we have Siegfried Fischbacher, born in Bavaria, Germany on June 13th, 1939, and Roy Horn, born in Oldenburg, Germany on October 3rd, 1944. However, the pair were more commonly known as simply Siegfried and Roy. If you haven't heard of them, or if you have and you just can't quite place where the name comes from, the dynamic duo are most well known for their time spent headlining the stages of Vegas, presenting their magic act to huge crowds of adoring fans. That is, of course, until the day this photo was taken, on October 3rd of 2003. In an effort to push themselves and their act to the next level, the pair had decided to bring in a third. No, not a third person, but a 400-pound, 7-foot-long Siberian tiger, affectionately referred to as Manticore. Well, actually, Roy had adopted the tiger as a cub, but by the time the incident occurred, it was massive. On the night of October 3rd in 2003, the trio was ready to go and began their performance under the bright lights of the big city. But unfortunately, the performance was cut short, as just minutes after this picture was taken, Manticore began to stray away from his performance, seemingly interested in the person sitting in the front row of the show. Roy placed himself between the giant animal and the crowd, commanding the tiger to turn around and go back to the act, but instead the animal refused. An altercation began, during which the tiger clamped its jaws forcefully around Roy's neck and dragged him 30 feet off stage as the crowd watched in horror. Eventually, they were able to remove the animal, and Roy did later recover from his injuries, but unfortunately the show did not. Roy maintained that the tiger did not attack him, but instead that the performer had suffered a stroke and that the animal's only intention was to bring him to safety. Next, we have the final moments of Carl Williams, depicted in a CCTV screen grab moments before his death. Williams, born October 13th of 1970, was a convicted killer and an illicit substance distributor from Melbourne, Australia. He had one wife, one child, and a brother. In 2007, Carl Williams was convicted of 3 killings as well as the illicit trafficking, and was later sentenced to serve 2 consecutive life sentences for his crimes in Barwon Prison in Victoria, Australia, with a 35-year period in which he would not be eligible for parole. His sentence was, however, cut short, as on April 19th of 2010, as Williams started reading the paper, he met the beginning of his end. It seems a fellow inmate by the name of Matthew Charles Johnson, seen in the photograph approaching from behind, holding the stem of an exercise bike, had discovered that Williams had been snitching to the officers, and he was not happy. With the same exercise bike stem, he beat Williams, who died of his injuries. The last photo of Lady Diana, along with her partner Dottie Fade and driver Henry Paul, is next on the list. The former princess, born July 1st of 1961 in Norfolk, United Kingdom, lived to be just 36 years old before she met her end in a car crash on August 31st, 1997. There have been multiple theories as to what caused the crash that took the lives of Diana, Fade, and Paul, but the 3 most popular are probably that it was 1, an accident caused by paparazzi flash blinding the driver, causing him to crash; 2, that the driver Henry Paul had been struggling with substance abuse and lost control of the vehicle due to being under the influence; and 3, that the crash was a cover-up, constructed by the royal family after the separation of Diana and former prince, now King, Charles. It has been speculated that Lady Diana was survived by a daughter she had previously hidden from the public, but this was never confirmed. Even after her death, many continue to recognize her regality, with a large amount of the British population even affectionately referring to the maiden as the People's Princess. Next, we have Jane Wicker, the Plain Dancer, also known as the ballerina in the sky. At the age of 44, Jane was at the top of the game in the extreme sport of wing-walking daredevil entertainment. On the 22nd of June in 2013, the mother of 2, along with her pilot, Charlie Schweckner, made their ascent in a small 50 HP Stearman airplane for what they believed would be nothing more than a routine act. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Things took a dark turn when the aircraft seemingly stalled in the air before plummeting and crashing on the ground, with the pilot at the wheel and Wicker on the wing. Upon impact, the plane burst into flames and the pair were killed instantly. Schwenker, the veteran pilot, had been flying for the Circus Air Show since 1990, 23 years, and Wicker was survived by her 2 sons and fiance. Up next, at our halfway point, we have the last ever photo taken of R. Budd Dwyer. The American politician, born November 21st of 1939, served as a member of the Pennsylvania State Senate from 1971 to 1981, and as a Pennsylvania treasurer from 1981 to 1987, during which time he was charged with 5 counts of mail fraud, 4 counts of racketeering, and 4 counts of perjury conspiracy to commit bribery. Later, in 1986, the disgraced politician was found guilty and convicted of 11 counts of conspiracy, mail fraud, perjury, racketeering, and accepting bribes. Dwyer's sentencing date was scheduled for January 23rd of the following year, but as you've probably guessed, he never made it to court. On January 22nd of 1987, just one day before Dwyer was scheduled to receive his sentence, he called for a news conference to be held in the Pennsylvania State Capitol building, as well as for said conference to be broadcasted live across the state, which it was. Reporters jumped at the opportunity to have one final chance to question Dwyer before sentencing, but little did they know that this would be the last time anyone would ask Dwyer anything, as halfway through the broadcast, ex-treasurer reached into an envelope and pulled out a weapon and ended his life. The really sad part is that Dwyer had maintained that he was innocent throughout the entirety of his court case, and it was only after his death that it was discovered he'd been framed for the whole thing. Next up, we have a photograph depicting the final moments of 2 Dutch service technicians. On October 29th of 2013, the 2 men made their way up to the top of a turbine for some maintenance work, and when they arrived at the top, a fire broke out, blocking the only chance of escape for both Dan Kaus and Aaron Cortus. The 2 can be seen embracing between the 2 blades of the giant windmill just moments before they met their separate ends. One of the men decided to leap from the structure and was later found in a field below, and the other found inside the charred remains of the turbine when firefighters were eventually able to make it up to the scene of the fire. The 2 men were members of an incredibly close-knit village near Amersfoort in Netherlands, and their deaths are said to have caused a profoundly deep sense of mourning within the communities. The Hindenburg is next up on the list. Commonly confused for a blimp, the long airship was actually a conventional Zeppelin design, meaning that the Hindenburg contained an internal framework to maintain its shape, while blimps rely on only internal air pressure. The airship was the pride of 1937 Germany when it was launched on May 6th of that year, carrying 36 passengers and 61 crewmen. However, the joyous moment was short-lived, as not long after its ascent, the airship exploded, most likely due to a gas leak that caused hydrogen from the vessel to mix with the oxygen in the air, and a small spark created by nothing more than static electricity caused the Hindenburg to be engulfed in flames. Surprisingly, the accident only caused 36 fatalities compared to the 92 people on board, and considering the entire aircraft had been engulfed in flames. Of the deceased from the incident were 13 passengers, 22 crewmen aboard the ship, and 1 ground crew member. Starting off our top 3, we have a photograph of Lelisa Desisa, the first to cross the finish line of the Boston Marathon on April 15th of 2013, winning him the gold medal. Just 2 hours later, explosions went off in the very spot where the photograph had been captured, taking the lives of 3 people and badly injuring another 300. A year later, in 2014, Lelisa decided to return his gold medal to the city. He had also privately given his racing bib to a woman who had lost her lower leg and her husband, who had also sustained serious injuries from the incident. The year following the attack, Desisa returned to compete again in the Boston Marathon, saying that sports hold the power to unify and connect people all over the world, and that they should never be used as a battleground. He also wanted to show that he was not scared, and he did just that, as in his 2015 do-over, he won for a second time, finishing even faster than he did the previous year. Next up, we have an aerial view shot looking down on Hiroshima and its people just moments before the 5-ton nuclear weapon, nicknamed Little Boy, dropped from the Enola Gray airliner onto the town and its civilians, releasing an explosive force equal to 20,000 tons of TNT, causing mass catastrophic destruction and the instant deaths of an estimated 80,000 people, and the prolonged deaths of thousands more due to radiation poisoning. It has also been estimated that 90% of the city was wiped out that day, the 6th of August in 1994. And the attack was followed up just 3 days later when another atomic bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki, releasing a similar explosive force, this one being equal to the force of 21,000 tons of TNT. And coming in at number 1, we have a photograph of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sofia Chotek, taken June 28th in 1914 of Sarajevo, Bosnia. Just moments after this photo was taken, the Archduke was assassinated directly in front of his wife by 19-year-old Bosnian Serb nationalist Gavrio Prinic. Although the Archduke, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was not the most popular royal at the time, what happened following his death was unprecedented global warfare, the war to end all wars, which would later come to be known as World War I. War was officially declared on July 28th of 1914 and lasted for 4 years, coming to an end on November 11th in 1918. But even after the Great War, as it has been referred to, was finished, the repercussions sent shockwaves throughout nations that extended into the second, even more devastating World War II. I'm Hannah Thompson. Thanks so much for watching the video today. We hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.